Test, test, test. Test, 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 test. Testing, testing. 1, 2, 3.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
All right, ready? Okay. Hi, everybody. Good morning. I'm Kate Lincoln-Goldfinch from immigration law firm Lincoln-Goldfinch Law. I'm here with you guys every Tuesday morning in English, answering all of your immigration questions, giving you updates on what's going on in the world of immigration. There's always a lot to discuss, so we'll get right to it. But one reminder before we get started, we have reduced our consultation fee to nothing. We're doing free consultations right now because of everything that's going on. The last thing that we want is for someone who needs good immigration advice to have a barrier to accessing that information. So we are doing free consultations. We are physically located in Central Austin on 40th Street, and we do offer in-person appointments and consultations. But we are also a virtual law firm, and immigration law is federal. We can represent people all over the 50 United States, and we can do consultations all over the 50 United States and the globe. So if you or someone that you know needs an immigration consultation, we're not charging for those right now. Feel free to just send me a DM, and we can get you scheduled, or share this video with someone and let them know that they can reach out to us as well. All right, let's talk about the news of the week. Of course, today is Tuesday. On Friday, there was a decision. There were 6 decisions by the Supreme Court, but one that was related to immigration. You know, they're calling it the birthright citizenship case because that was the vehicle for the decision, but it is not a birthright citizenship case. It's actually about the Supreme Court took up this decision to decide whether lower federal courts have the authority to issue nationwide injunctions against certain policies. This has been a more heavily utilized tool in the toolkit of the federal courts when the Trump administration does some, clearly illegal, unconstitutional policy, like trying to cancel birthright citizenship, which is part of the Constitution. And a federal judge can issue a nationwide injunction, which is like an immediate block on the policy that can occur within hours or certainly within days. So it is a very quick and fast acting tool that the federal courts can use to stop the Trump administration. The alternative tool that the federal courts have is something called class action lawsuit, right? Where people join into a class and then the class is described. So anybody with these characteristics and features is now a protected class member. And once the class is certified by the federal court, then the courts can issue class-wide injunctions or rulings. The problem with class certifications is that they take 6 months or even longer to complete. So let's just take the example of birthright citizenship. If we don't have nationwide injunctions and what is required are class certifications, then it looks like, oh my gosh, birthright citizenship is going into effect. A lawsuit gets filed. It takes 6 months for the class to get certified. And in the meantime, the policy goes into effect. This is why class certification has not been utilized in emergency situations. And instead, we see things like, national injunction, this policy may not be implemented until the litigation can work itself out. Okay, so that's what the Supreme Court was grappling with. Can we allow federal judges to issue these emergency nationwide injunctions in policies like birthright citizenship? The thing that was a little surprising and confusing was that the Supreme Court utilized birthright citizenship as the vehicle for taking up this question over nationwide injunctions. And the reason that this is surprising is because it's so clearly an overreach by the executive branch. This is unconstitutional. It's not going to survive ultimate challenge in the federal court system. It's just not. So why would the Supreme Court take up a clearly on its face unconstitutional policy to answer the question of nationwide injunctions? Frankly, it was a bold and strategic decision on the Trump litigation team that worked out in their favor, because on Friday, the Supreme Court issued a 6-3 decision, a majority decision, essentially blocking nationwide injunctions. And there's this whole can they offer complete relief and like it's one of these sort of complex judicial questions But at the end of the day, the holding of the Supreme Court is that nationwide injunctions are disallowed, and we have to revert back to class certification. The decision of the Supreme Court was stayed for 30 days. So it's not as if like, oh, okay, well, now we have birthright citizenship. It has to go back down to the federal court to essentially interpret the Supreme Court's holding. And then we'll see what happens. So nothing's happening now for the next 30 days. The lower court has to interpret the holding. Then the Trump administration has to act. What could it look like? It could look like in 30 days, the lower federal court says, we can't issue nationwide injunctions in only the 3 jurisdictions that have filed a lawsuit. I think it's Maryland, DC, and maybe Massachusetts. Only in these jurisdictions are we enjoining, which is the injunction, the stoppage of birthright citizenship. And then we're going to have to see lawsuits in all the other jurisdictions. And then whatever those courts decide is TBD. So we might possibly see a situation in which, like in Texas, that birthright citizenship is stopped, which in practice would look like, okay, a baby's born at a hospital. Somehow there's going to have to be some policy where, sorry, let me just pause real quick. Do you guys want to get my phone and we can go live on TikTok on my phone? Sorry. One sec, guys. We're just having technical difficulties on our TikTok streaming, so we're going to go live on the phone. Thank you. I'll just unlock it. Sure. Right, bear with me just one sec, guys. I'll be right with you. Okay, here you go. Thank you. Okay, so we might see a situation in which Texas doesn't allow birthright citizenship. Texas or other, jurisdictions that don't have an injunction. And then there's going to have to be some like procedure rollout where somehow hospitals are going to have to verify people's immigration status, which so many issues with that. And then if the parents are undocumented, then they decline to turn the birth certificate over. And then there's going to have to be some administrative process for that, right? With the state agency. And then, but then there's going to be issues around like, what if the baby is born premature and needs to be in the NICU and they're going to literally die if they don't have Medicare, but they're undocumented? I mean, it's absolute insanity. Like imagining the reality of what it'll look like in an era without birthright citizenship is absolute insanity. So I think, here's what I think. At the end of the day, we are not going to have a situation in which we don't have birthright citizenships in some states and we do in others. Like this is going to get up to the Supreme Court, and we are not going to have the cancellation of birthright citizenship. It's in the Constitution. But are we going to have this like real bumpy, weird road on the pathway there? And are some families going to be impacted? That's a probable. So we'll just, keep hanging with me, following my stuff. I'll update you every turn of the road and let you know what you guys can be doing. So that's the deal with nationwide injunction / birthright citizenship out of the Supreme Court. That was a long-winded explanation, but it's a long-winded situation. Okay, number 2, we've got visa processing. We've been talking a lot about visas. They stopped visa processing. They started it up again. They're checking everybody's social media. Social media accounts have to be public. Anything like anti-Trump or pro-Palestine is going to become problematic. But there's actual like real problems happening because a bunch of medical residencies are starting on July 1st. So that, when somebody graduates from medical school, then they go into residency. That's their practical training to become doctors. And there's a lot of foreign doctors. I mean, these are like best and the brightest, top of their class. They've been admitted to U.S. residencies. The residencies hold a spot for them. They forego other applicants. They have the whole plan. The hospital needs them. These people are waiting. Like the whole thing is like set. And because these foreign medical student graduates can't get their stupid visas, everybody's scrambling, and we are going to have a situation with our medical care in the United States because the Trump administration can't get it together to process doctors' visas. So that's happening. Number 3, we're seeing overcrowding in detention centers. So we have capacity to hold about 40,000 immigrants in detention nationwide in all the various detention centers. We're close to 60,000. right? So like 50, what is that? 50% overcrowded. Imagine. So people are sleeping on the floor. People are like scrambling water. Like there's not water to drink. And so when they bring like one of those big plastic things of like the water bottles and they open it, like everybody scrambles to get the water because they're also thirsty. People are not getting medical care. There have been some deaths in detention. And what makes it all worse is that we don't have lawyers and human rights advocates don't have the same access to these detention centers that we once did because the Trump administration has cut off the funding for the legal orientation program, which was the way that nonprofits were able to go into these detention centers and, and educate people about their rights and the process for seeking asylum and all that. So they were also able to like talk to people inside and see what's going on in the facility. I used to do these programs back in the day when I was a nonprofit attorney. So every, several times a week, you're going into the belly of the detention center and you're talking to everybody there as a nonprofit lawyer, and you're finding out like everything that's going down. It's real-time information about what's going on. All that access has been cut. And furthermore, the Trump administration put out a memo requiring members of Congress to notify 72 hours in advance before they visit a detention center. Like the very entity that oversees these detention centers now can't do surprise visits. So they are actively harming people in these detention centers. They're overcrowded and they have cut all oversight over what's happening. It's really, really bad. And I know like hearing me talk about this stuff every week, it's easy to just be like, okay, I don't know what to do. Like, this is horrible. What do I even do? We keep talking about it. We have to keep talking about it because we can't become desensitized to this stuff. Like you hear one more horrible story and you're like, oh, well, that's not as bad as like the other thing I heard, right? But we have to remember how horrible each of these things are. Share them on social media, call your legislators, talk to your friends about it. Like this, we have to be the drumbeat of the outcry because this stuff is truly horrific, more horrific than it's ever been in our entire history. And we cannot just like stop talking about it. So that's what we got to do. Don't cover up and just blank out, which I understand. I totally understand that the desire is to be like, I can't do anything about this. This is just harmful to me to hear this stuff. But we have to be like shouting from the rooftops. This is not who we are as a nation. We cannot allow this to go on under our watch. So obviously the regular stuff, the voting, donating to political campaigns, going to the protests, talking to your legislators, but honestly, just voices, just loud voices is really what's required right now. Let's see. And then the denaturalization stuff, I hesitate to like even say the word denaturalization because I think it gets blown out of proportion, but there is an initiative in the Justice Department to strip naturalized citizens who have been convicted of criminal offenses. I would not stress a lot about that. There's not a lot of support for that in the law, and it's more about scaring people than actually taking people's citizenship away. So that's my advice. Don't stress about that. Okay, let's get to your questions. Come on, bring them. Let's talk stuff. Let's talk politics. Let's talk, your immigration questions. I'm here for it. I've got my first one via Facebook from Gerardo. This is in Spanish. I'm going to read it and answer it in Spanish. I will also translate in English. My Spanish show is on Thursdays, by the way. So just if you prefer Spanish, come then. Be here too in English, but just FYI. ¿Aún se puede solicitar asilo político o ya no? Sí, todavía puede solicitar asilo. Lo que pasa es que hay rumores de que la administración va a tratar de cancelar o cerrar los casos de solicitantes que entraron sin permiso, pero eso no tiene base en la ley, entonces no va a sobrevivir una demanda en Corte Federal. So, sí hay rumores de que no van a como aceptar solicitantes de asilo, pero eso no va a haber como final, okay? The question from Gerardo is, can we still apply for asylum or no? Yes. Asylum is still part of our laws. It was passed by Congress in 1980. That was 45 years ago. We have a robust body of legislation on this and case law on this that has been built out in the courts. This is established law of the United States. This is not something that the president can just say like, never mind, we don't want asylum anymore. No, that's not going to happen. So they might attempt to do it. As we know, they do all sorts of illegal stuff. They might attempt to do it. They will be sued, and it will not survive litigation for them to just revoke asylum for people who entered without status. That's not what the law says. Okay, so Congress would have to change the law in order for that to occur. So please, if you qualify for asylum, if you're afraid of returning to your country, don't give up. Talk to a lawyer. Let us help you protect yourself. I'm so sorry we're even having this conversation. Simply Desire on Instagram. I want to just confirm that the things I read online are correct, but this is only for those born after February 2025 regarding birthright citizenship. So, right, the birthright citizenship cancellation, this is a big question. First of all, birthright citizenship has not been canceled. That was not what the Supreme Court held. The Supreme Court held that the lower federal courts didn't have authority to issue nationwide injunctions. Ultimately, at the end of the day, birthright citizenship will survive all of this litigation, but it's going to be probably a bumpy ride. But to the question about, it's called retroactivity. Does the executive order of Trump apply retroactively to revoke citizenship for children already born in the United States? No. It is not a retroactive executive order. So people who were born when the executive order were announced are U.S. citizens. There's no rumors or suggestions that they're going to try to retroactively apply it. Does filing the I-130 stop a deportation? This is such a good question. The I-130 is a family petition. That's when a permanent resident or a U.S. citizen petitions for a relative. It could be a spouse, a parent, a child, a sibling, depending on, who's petitioning, etc. The simple answer to that question is no. The I-130 does not stop a deportation. Only in the case of an immediate relative of a U.S. citizen who has also filed for adjustment of status does the I-130 stop a deportation. But it can be, number one, a way to protect, right? It shows ties in the United States. It shows that, it allows us to advocate for this person, certainly helps with release from detention in a bond hearing, for example. So it's a good idea. Number two, it also helps get the process started. Let's say if somebody is married to a permanent resident, we file an I-130, the worst happens, they get deported. Well, they've already got that I-130 processing and pending, right? So it shortens the amount of time that it takes to bring that person back. So it's a good idea to file it, even though it doesn't stop a deportation, but it is good to know that an I-130 is not protection against deportation. Mr. Resolo on Instagram, what do we do to prepare and what do we do if approached? I'm a DACA recipient. Let's say they end DACA. Okay, let's talk about right now first. DACA holders are protected. You have deferred action. That means you won't be deported. It's deferral of a deportation, right? That's what deferred action is. Number two, you have work permits. You presumably have a driver's license that is a real ID. You should not be detained. You should not be deported absent some significant criminal situation. Okay, which if you have DACA, unless something happened recently, you also don't have a criminal history. So right now, DACA holders don't need to be worried. I do recommend that you have a relationship with an immigration attorney in case you get stopped or detained so that we can act really fast on your behalf. I know that a lot of dreamers, you've done your DACA initial, you've done all your renewals, you do it on your own, you don't necessarily need a lawyer, etc. Now would be a time that I would say it's a good idea to have a relationship with a lawyer if you're a DACA recipient. Let's watch closely for what's going to happen with DACA. The Fifth Circuit didn't end DACA, but they sent it back to Judge Hanen. DACA in Texas is really sort of wobbly right now because we might see an end to work permit eligibility for Texans with DACA, but not an end to deferred action. That's all going to depend on what Judge Hanen says. That decision is imminent. I don't think that the Trump administration is going to go after the Dreamers. I think that would be politically really unwise. And they don't talk about that like they're going to. I mean, maybe, like Steve Bannon or Stephen Miller might say something wild and zany. I don't think that the Trump administration would do that. So I personally don't walk around worried about the end of DACA. I worry about a lot of other stuff. That's not one of the things that I worry about. If that were to happen, let's say DACA were to end, keep in mind, in order to qualify for DACA, you have to have been here since 2007. That's a really long time. That's more than 2 years. That means you're not subject to expedited removal and you have protection against deportation because only a judge can order you removed. So you would have eligibility to go before the judge and seek relief or some kind of defense. It could be family case, it could be asylum, it could be cancellation of removal. There's a lot of options in court. So none of the dreamers, if they ended DACA, none of the dreamers could just be like picked up and removed, right? It would be a whole long court process for each individual. And that's another reason I just don't think they're going to do it. So I would say let's not spend a lot of time worrying about the end of DACA, because I think it's really unlikely. And for current DACA holders, the best thing you can do, number one, is keep your status active. Don't let it expire. Number two, talk to a lawyer about whether you have eligibility for any other type of permanent case, and then you formed a relationship with a lawyer. Ashley and Roberto and TikTok, do I think that birthright citizenship will actually be taken away? I do not. Birthright citizenship is part of the Constitution. The Supreme Court has weighed in on this for centuries. It's not going to be taken away. What the Supreme Court held is that lower federal courts can't issue emergency injunctions against policies like birthright citizenship. That instead we have to get like a class certification, which can take 6 months. So it's problematic because something like that would allow these policies to go into effect for a period of time. It takes away the court's ability to emergency stop actions by the Trump administration. That was the holding. But at the end of the day, it's really clear that the Supreme Court, all the federal courts do not think that ending birthright citizenship would be constitutional. So it's not going to happen ultimately, but we might see a period of time where they try to implement it in some regions like Texas, and like babies born can't get birth certificates, or worse, can't get medical care if they need it, like through Medicaid. So I'm not saying we're not going to have a bumpy ride and it's not going to be bad in some places, but ultimately birthright citizenship is not going anywhere. Not without an amendment to the Constitution, which would not get through Congress. Melanie, thanks for being here. You're always here. I appreciate it. How we can afford all the lawyer fees, and how do they know who they can trust? Who can afford all the lawyer fees, and how do they know who they can trust? Okay, great question. I know the immigrant community, understandably, is not very trusting of a lot of immigration advisors, right? There's a lot of notarios. There's a lot of fraud out there. I can't tell you over the years how many people have come to me. They've just had their money taken. Like, bad stuff goes down out there because the immigrant community is vulnerable and people take advantage of it. And that is a reality. So some advice on how to pick someone. Number one, make sure it's a lawyer with a license, not some notario, not some forms preparer. I can't even tell you, like, I get on TikTok, I see these forms preparers doing lives. Like, it is bold. They get out there and they're doing ads on Facebook. They are not lawyers. They do not understand the implications of immigration law. Please do not put your lives in their hands. That's number one. Check a license, and they should be, you can, because immigration law is federal, it can be a little bit hard because, like, there are lawyers on my team, and we're based in Texas, but they're licensed in other states. So you can't just go to like the State Bar of Texas and assume that because they're located in Texas, that's where they're barred. I'm barred in Texas. But find out where they're licensed, and then check that state bar website. You can just Google like Lincoln-Goldfinch, State Bar of Texas, right? And it'll show you my page. It'll show you it's a little green light. I'm active. I have no disciplinary actions. Like, check that on the person. Check their Google reviews, their online reviews. What are their clients saying about them? Get some recommendations from your community. Check them out on social media. Do you like who they are, what they stand for, the advice that they give? And then go to a consultation, and then make sure in this consultation that you feel good about the conversation. Did they listen to you? Did they ask you what you want to accomplish? Did they help you think about how to protect yourself and prepare for the process? Did they explain it to you in an informational way so that you understand, what are we doing? How much does it cost? How long does it take? Like, I liken it to, like, sometimes you go to a doctor who's a specialist and they've got a big ego and they're just like, I know what I'm doing. Don't ask me a lot of questions. This is the treatment that you need. Like, the end, get out of my office. And the whole thing is rushed. And you're like, excuse me, this is my body. I want information. Or you go to a doctor who, like, gives you a lot of time. They come into the office, they sit down, they look you in the eye. What is it that you want to know? What questions do you have? And you feel like they actually care about you, and you making an informed decision for yourself. I think that's a key difference. It's like, are you being empowered to make your own decisions about your own life and your own future because this person is educating and informing you and supporting you? Or are they just acting like they know it all and they know what's right for you? There's a lot of lawyers out there who have a big ego and they're just like, think they know what's good for everybody. So those are some pieces of advice. And then in terms of affording it, it is costly. It's costly to hire a lawyer in any area of the law, right? We go to law school, we spend a lot of money on our education, and it's like doctors, it costs money. So immigrants, I would say, be aware of that. Save your money. Don't, in this time, if you're undocumented, don't do extravagant other purchases. Like, now's not the time to have the new truck, maybe. Save money, put money away for a rainy day fund or a detention fund. And then talk to the lawyer about, like, in my office, we do payment plans. We try to make it accessible for people. We also work with nonprofit lenders. BFD, I can't remember what it stands for. There's a couple that we work with that specifically lend to immigrants for immigration legal services. Really cool organizations that are doing good work out there. So there's ways around it. So that was a long-winded answer to your question, Melanie. And I'm out of time, so I'm going to answer Women for Christ. And then, and then tell you about something else we're doing today. And then I'm going to give you your action tip. Okay. Traveling in 2 weeks as a naturalized citizen with a DUI from 2002. Should I worry? No, I would not worry as a naturalized citizen. It might be a good idea for you to print out the final disposition of your DWI case, just to show closed, no fines owed, no warrant out. Like, sometimes people have a conviction and then they're supposed to, like, go to a class, or there was some sort of like probation requirement that wasn't completed, and then you have a warrant and you don't know it, and then you would be arrested at the airport. As a citizen, they can only arrest you if you have a warrant at the airport. But so if you have a criminal history, confirm that everything is closed and done, and go ahead and print it out just in case their system shows an arrest but doesn't have the disposition. That can happen. Okay, today at noon, guys, I'm going to do another live stream, and it's going to be on the bus. El Bus Sin Fronteras, our nonprofit bus that's going out in the community and giving resources and information. And we're going to be live again, showing you a tour of the inside of the bus, which is really cool. So hopefully I'll see you there. And then with that, let me give you the action tip of the week. I have it right here. Again, everybody's like, what can I do? What can I do? So here's what we want to do. Let's talk to the Home Depot, your local Home Depot. We've seen some raids there, and let's call the Home Depot in our area and say, we want ICE out of our local Home Depot. I don't feel safe. I don't want to see my neighbors targeted. What are you going to do from this? So you can call the store, and you can actually call your local call your city councilman. I'm in District 4 in Austin. Chito Vela is actually an immigration lawyer. Shout out to you, Chito. He's awesome. Call his office, find out what he's doing about it. Call your state rep, just like call people and tell them this stuff. Tell them, I don't want ICE in my community. What's going on? Just amplify our voices. Amplify our voices. Send love to your immigrant friends. Amplify your voice. That's the refrain of what we're doing right now. So I appreciate you guys being here with me. Happy Tuesday. I'll see you at noon, and then Thursday in Spanish. Thanks. Bye.